Day 2. What's in it this time? Hi and welcome to another episode. What we've got here is the PiHut Advent Calendar, the 12 projects of Codemas, Day 2. Let's find out what's inside. We have some jumper wires. You can see that from the get-go. Some kind of bit of card in there. Oh no, it's for the ends of the resistors, I think. Let's have a look. Oh, an LED. There's a jumper wires, some resistors, an LED, and another LED. So 3 LEDs. As always, let's skip across to the website, find out what we're supposed to be doing with all of this. As we know from yesterday, we've got the Raspberry Pi Pico, and we're on to day 2. It needs to be unplugged. If you haven't already unplugged it from yesterday, unplug it. Let's find out what we're supposed to be doing. So, welcome to day 2 of 12 projects of Codemas Advent Calendar. Today we're playing with one of the most popular components for makers, LEDs. LEDs stands for light emitting diodes, and are a staple component for makers of all experience levels and handy for indication for feedback or just fun bent of blinky. So LEDs come in all sorts of shapes, sizes and ratings, and are everywhere in daily lives, in your PC, your home, your car dashboard, vending machine, spaceships and more. I'm sure they are. Right then, so let's go. Ho ho. Oh, is there a copyright on the third one? Anyway, inside the box we have one 5mm red LED with clear lens. Which one's the red one? How am I supposed to know? Can you tell by venom? Oh, just gonna have to wait until they glow, I think. Maybe there's a bit of a tint to them. Not too sure. Anyway, so a red one, an amber one, and a green one. Okay. 3 times 330 ohm resistors. 3 resistors. And 4 male-to-male jumper wires. Yep. 4 male-to-male. Right, that's a good start. Today we'll be programming LEDs to light up, flash and display sequences, building on yesterday's code using GPIO pins to control them. We'll also be learning some new functions in MicroPython to introduce some new elements in our code. The box includes 3 different colors to allow you to have some fun making light patterns. What is an LED? An LED is a light emitting diode. These components emit light when electrical currents flow through them. LEDs have 2 legs, one leg longer than the other, and they have a specific polarity, which means that the electrical current can only flow in one direction, and if not, the LEDs can be damaged. So be very careful. Very, very careful. The long leg is an anode, the plus or the positive side of things. So, can we see? Maybe we zoom in a little bit just to get a bit of a look. We're zooming in today? Yeah, we are zooming in today. There we go. I think it's time to replace the battery in my little remote controller. So as we can see, one leg is slightly longer than the other. So that is the anode. And the way that I remember that is the other way, actually, is for the short leg is the cathode. So something's minus, some's a little bit less than the other. Let's have a look at it again. Oh, a little bit less than the other. I see it as being that is shorter. It's had a bit taken away, and that's how I remember it. Kathy has taken a little bit away from the leg. It's a silly thing, but I got taught that all the way back when I was doing GCSEs. So I've forgotten everything else about electronics apart from a silly little saying like that. Anyway, current must be always flow from the anode to the cathode, so be sure to read wiring instructions below carefully to make sure you get this bit right. This bit correct. Learn correct English. This bit correct. Right. So a little bit more. Resistors. LEDs usually require current limiting resistor when using them with a microcontroller. Resistors limit the amount of current that can pass through the circuit, which helps avoid the LED trying to pull more current than our Pico's GPIO pins can safely provide, and equally protects the LED from too much current. It doesn't matter which side of the LED the resistor sits, as long as it's there limiting the flow of current for the entire circuit. Take a look at our comment section for examples. Right. But anyway, let's move on to here. The Raspberry Pi Pico pin map. Here's a simplified map of the pins. The Pico is also known as pinout, to help you with the next steps to the rest of the calendar. The numbers in the grey squares are the physical pin numbers, which are numbered in order around the board. And GPIO pin numbers are what we use in our code, are in green. You can also download a full PDF, which we did yesterday. Alright, so we have a look. So we've got the numbers and the GPIO pins. Okay. Construct the circuit. First, make sure the Pico is disconnected from the USB cable. You should always do this when amending a circuit. Then grab a set of jumper wires, resistors and LEDs. The boards. We're going to be adding components to our breadboard. Breadboards allow you to connect to a prototype circuit without soldering, using wires with pins at the end called jumper wires, sometimes called dew point wires. These breadboards have two sets of horizontal channels, red/blue, on both sides, sorry. So that's what these are across the top. Have to zoom back in again, are we? Let's zoom back in again, but basically we've got the diagram anyway, haven't we? Slightly lower down, but just proving that what they actually look like on here. Get these LEDs stuff out of the way. So there we go, we can see them, there's two rows. All the red pins are connected, as are the blue, but each side is disconnected from the other. We use these to create rails of the connections for us to use, such as ground for the blue channel and 3.3 volts for the red. The holes in the middle are connected in vertical lines, and each lane has 5 connected pins each side of the divider. The divider stops both sides connecting together. So that's what that ridge bit, that valley bit is down in the middle. This circuit place the 3 LEDs in the lower section of the board, one hole apart, with the longest leg to the right, as seen in the image below. Okay, so longest leg to the right. We're going on row F, and we're going to be going from what are we, 22. So 122 going there. Obviously I don't know which colour is which at the moment, so I might have to switch them around when we start getting some power through. So anyway, miss a hole and then another one, so that should be going in there. That should be in row F obviously, but pin 25, and then the third one should be in row F, pin 28. I get to go in there. Try again. There we go. As I say, I'm going to have to probably move these around, and you probably have to move these around as well, because we don't know what the colours are right now. So we definitely got the longest leg to the right. I know we've done that correctly now. We now need to add a resistor to limit the current that the LED can draw from our GPIO pins. Okay. Let's pull off a bit of cardboard that's on the end of all of them. We need a decent connection. Got the 3 resistors just here. Just need one for now because it only fit one at a time. Now grab the jumper. Whoa, wait a minute. Okay, place the resistor between the left leg of each LED and the lower blue channel, like below. We'll be connecting the blue channel to the ground pin shortly. Okay, so we'll go from I29 to the pin, bottom left pin of the blue line. And then resistor's bouncing all over the place now. Just carefully bending the legs. Do that for the next one. So we got I26 and the bottom row. I'll leave a couple of spaces. Make sure that the legs of the resistors aren't touching other legs or other things as well. That's something that you need to be careful about, because you could create a short. Now we're going for pin 23. This one's been a bit awkward. So that's the resistors in. As I say, make sure they're not touching each other. It was very difficult to get that in there. I found that actually using the legs from one of the LEDs sort of helped force open the little grabby bit that's inside there and made it easy for the resistor to go in. So just make sure you put the LED back in the correct place. They still are dead LEDs, you can see them. Right, now grab some jumper wires. Let's move that up a bit. You need one wire connecting to the blue channel to the ground pin on your Pico. We suggest using physical pin 38. Okay. There's a black wire for that. Pin 38 on sorry, not J38. We want pin 38 up here, so that's actually J3. And we want that to go down to the blue, so we push that there. Then we want, there we go. Yeah, usually it says pin 38 like we've done in the diagram below. Remember to refer to the Pico pinout if you need to reminder. You also need to connect the right leg of each LED to the GPIO pin. Use GPIO 18, physical 24 for red. And then 19, physical pin 25 for the amber. And GPIO 20 for physical pin 26 for the green, like the diagram below. Okay, doesn't really matter how we do the wires, but since we've got a red wire, we'll use pin 27. Oh, physical pin 20. Yeah. Oh, this all gets very confusing now. I27. Let's do that correctly. Not I27, sorry. J27. J27. Need to go in. There we go. J27. And we want that to go to physical pin 26. That's 23, 24, 25, 26. So that should be J. Where are we? So that's 23, that's 24, 25, 26. That comes down to being pin J15. And we've got an amber one, which is basically yellow, so we'll use the yellow wire. And we're taking J25, pushing that across to the one next to the last one, which will be J16. And then we use the last wire for that, which will be pin J28. And we want to go across to the one next to that one, which will be J17. So that should be all the things, just making sure that we haven't nudged resistors to be touching each other and all that. No, they're fine. Everything's up to being blinky. Activity number 1. Light each LED. A simple exercise. First, using some of the code we learnt yesterday, we're going to light each LED, wait 5 seconds and turn them off. To do this, we need to introduce a new module to you. Time. Note, assuming you turned off your computer after yesterday's box, you may need to jump back into Thonny and select Run Configure Interpreter again to tell it which device we're playing with. We know a trick with that now though, don't we? Because, anyway, we need to get hold of the USB. But as I said, the trick that we know is, one, you plug it in. I just got this ridiculously long wire. But then, in Thonny, we get the mouse pointer across, we press stop, and it finds it again for us. So, it talks about, though, that the time module allows you to run program delays in your code, making it wait for seconds or fractions of seconds before counting. It's another fundamental module you'll use to most of your projects. The code. Our code imports a pin again and also imports time. We then define the pin number for each of our color LEDs, giving them a sensible name for each, and set them to outputs. After that, a simple case of setting each LED pin to high, waiting for 5 seconds using time.sleep 5, then setting them all low again. High being 1, low being 0, 1 being on, 0 being off. Here's the code to copy to Thonny and then run to the usual way by hitting the green button. Once you've lit each LED and know which color is which, unplug your USB cable and rearrange them to get them in the correct order of green, amber, red. We want green, amber, red. Okay. So copy the text, we'll paste it, and we shall run it. So I've got red, green, amber. So they couldn't be more out of place, could they? Right, so they're all going to have to be removed. So let's remember, we've got red, green, amber, and we want, what was it? Just read it. Where was it gone now? Green, amber, red. Right, so we need to unplug it, and I do it this way because it's easier than messing up the USB port of the Pico. So in my case, it's all the wrong way around, so I'm going to take the red one out. I want that to be last. Oh, that's red. This was green, wasn't it? And then this one was amber. So okay. Let's remember that the long legs go in to the right hand side. Where did we put them in before? Let's scroll back on F. One. So should be quite done now. There we go. Let's plug it back in again. Run the code one more time, but first we of course need to press stop to reset it because we've unplugged it, and press run. So now we have green, amber, red, and that's what we wanted, green, amber, red. Okay. Flashing LEDs. Let's make things a little bit more interesting by making the LEDs flash. To do this, we need to introduce while loops into our code. Technically, you could just repeat the on-off code above, but that would make your code very long indeed and would eventually end. So let's look at the better way, but perhaps not the best way. We'll show you another way in a future box once we've got the hang of MicroPython. We also need to introduce variables, indentation, and code commentary. The while loops are used to repeat the block of code along with the condition remains true. Imagine you're bouncing a ball whilst your friend counts how many bounces you've completed. Your condition might be bounce the ball until you count 5 bounces. After 5 bounces, you would stop. We can tell a while loop to run a block of code until a count or a certain condition is met, or we could just make it repeat forever by using while true, which is useful for most projects intended to keep running. So we'll now going to make the LEDs flash 10 times, then stop, and we'll show you how to adjust to in a moment. Code commentary. Basically, they've explained a load of stuff, but as you can see here, this section, you put a hash symbol and then you write some stuff that makes sense to you and hopefully to somebody else, because someone else might want to read your code after you. And that's the whole point. That when it's actually ran, it's ignored by the computer, apart from it's stored in saving the file and everything like that, but it's not actually ran. So you can actually put a line of code if you're testing and put a hash symbol in front of it just to make it skip that line of code, and then delete that hash symbol at a later time to bring that code back into play again. But what you do most of the time is to use it so that you've got some kind of notes for yourself and the next person, so you know what you're doing at this bit of code. And basically that's what they're explaining. Variables, on the other hand, again, they say a load of stuff, but it's kind of like this, saying it's a container. It's pretty much what it is. But if you've ever done algebra, you'll have an understanding of it, as in you've got your A equals B squared plus C squared, that sort of stuff. The letter or a word that you've typed out that's holding a value of some sort. It could be different things. It could be a string, it could be as in different characters, it could be integers, which are whole numbers, or it can be a float, which is a number with a decimal place or decimal point, depending on where in the world that you call it. That's what they explain here as well. Indentation, that's important because when you're doing your while loop, the stuff that you indent for that while loop, basically you press tab, that lets it know that's part of the loop. But it explains all that here as well. The code below first imports the things we need, as always, sets up the pin numbers and will be done as we did before. Then creates a variable called counter, which we'll use to count as many times we'll run the block of code. We start a while loop using while counter less than 11, which is saying while the counter's variable is less than 11, and then depends on what you want to do afterwards. Our code prints the counter to help you see the value changing in Thonny, then simply runs all the LEDs off and on again with half a second pause in between. Without the pauses, it would be so fast you wouldn't see the flashes. At the end of the block, we'll add +1 to our counter, then it will start the loop again. As soon as that counter variable reaches 11, the loop stops running and the program ends. Copy this code over to Thonny and run it in the usual way with the green button. Okay, so what we can do though, and I would recommend you do this for all the bits that you're doing, I would recommend that you type it out to get used to it. I will say this pretty much every day, but if I don't, remember to type it out to get practice typing this code out. And also save your programs under like day 1, example 1 or something like that, so that you at least got the code at a later time to come back and play with. Because who knows, the PiHut website might not be around forever. Probably will be, but it might not be. So what we can do also though, for here, we can just close this down, because I'm not going to be saving anything. Close this down, I'll say no, and I'll start a new one. And I'm going to copy because I'm trying to do this relatively quickly for us just to get through. Now let's have a quick look at the comments. It's importing the important stuff. Basically that's the machine and the pins. We've imported time because we need to be able to count for our delays. Set up the LED names and GPO pin numbers. This is what I mean about the comments with the hash symbol. It's just so that you can go, oh yeah, that's what this bit does. Because if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. If you've never done any programming before, you wouldn't know. And even if you have done some programming, it might not make instant sense of what this means. Even though it's pin stuff, yes, you probably can put it together if you've done coding, but it just makes it to go, oh yeah, that's what they're doing, and you just read it. So for obviously, if you don't speak English, you can put it in whichever language you speak, even though that the programming language will be in English. Anyway, the counter set to 1 to get going. Well, the counter is less than 11, so that means we'll get up to 10 and it'll stop, because, well, actually it'll do 10, then run it, and then get to 11 and then stop. That's what it'll do. Print the current counter, so we get to see in this shell box down here what's happening. Turn the LEDs on, turn them off, wait half a second, and then turn them off, wait half a second, and keep doing that until we're doing it, because we're adding 1. So counter plus equal to 1. So whatever the counter is, that's sort of shorthand for writing counter equals counter plus 1. That's sort of shorthand for doing that. Anyway, let's run it. So there these come on, flash, 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 and our little counter is going as well. It's a 10 and it's stopped. We know it stopped because it's given those 3 little signs there. So let's move on. Try changing both the time sleep values to different numbers and see what happens. It should change the speed of the flashing LEDs. You can also change the while loop to run forever. Swap the line out with the line below to give you that try. The counter will still continue to increase and print, but won't change the code it does. So have a go at doing that yourself and see what happens. We're not going to do it here because I'm trying to get through them relatively quickly, and it's interesting to see some things for yourself. But basically that now ignores the whole counter bit and just keeps going for it. It'd count up to 1,000,000 if you left it. In fact, it'd count up to a ridiculously large number if you left it forever, but that's the whole point. You could actually wait for the computer to break before it stopped. Anyway, next bit, activity number 3. We're now going to make our LEDs flash one after another in sequence, yes, like a festive decoration. Whilst there are more advanced ways of achieving this using lists, for example, which we'll cover in a future box, we're going to keep things simple whilst we continue to learn MicroPython. The program for this is very similar. However, we change the LED control section to turn each LED on one by one, turning off the other as we go. Try the code below, paying attention to the on-off comments next to each LED control line. Okay, so we'll get rid of that. New one, copy the code, paste it in. So if you notice, what we've got is, this is a bit of a messy way of doing it, but it does do it. We're turning the red one on because of 1. We've made it high, as we know that's the other way of referencing that. And then the amber one, we're making sure that's off, and the green one's off. Wait half a second, turn the amber one on, so red off, amber on, green off, and so on and so forth. Why they've done it that way around, I'm not so sure, but let's run it. There we go, green, amber, red, green, amber, red. That works. And it stopped at 10 again. So that was a fun way of learning about how to program some LEDs up. We've done the day 2 bit. We can have a look at the way that it talks about it there. Yep. Right, it's just telling us what we already know now, don't we? So don't forget to have a look in the description, check for links for Patreon and Discord. Come have a chat about what's going on, this box or the last advent calendar. Don't forget to also hit that like button, the subscribe button and that notification bell. It all helps keep this little channel going. Hopefully it'll get bigger one day. But as always, happy gaming.